Okay, so we're very excited today to be featuring this workshop. The theme is digital storytelling of African water challenges and the links to human health and well-being. And we are featuring the work that our ARUA Water Center of Excellence at the Institute for Water Research, Rhodes University, has been doing with some of our African partners and colleagues, and particularly focusing on the work of our early career researchers. They're doing some amazing research work on water challenges in Africa and the links to human health and well-being. So I'm going to take you briefly through the program for this session. Thanks, Sukh. All right, so Sukh is going to give us a brief background to digital storytelling and the role in science communication. So communicating science findings to civil society. And then we'll hand over to Dr. Jane Tanner, who is the co-director of the Water Center of Excellence, to give us a background to the work that we're doing as a Water Center of Excellence and the work that some of our African partners are doing. And she'll introduce the speakers for today. We'll then have 2 storytelling sessions. So they each will feature 4 stories of African water challenges, each followed by a 20-minute facilitated discussion. We have 2 early career researchers from our African nodes who will be facilitating these discussion sessions. In between the 2 storytelling sessions, we'll have a 10-minute refreshment break from 11:40 to 11:15, just to give everyone a break and allow them to refresh themselves. And then Professor Tally Palmer, who is the director of the ARUA Water Center of Excellence, will be closing the session today. Thank you, Tally. So that's our program in brief. And we are super excited to share the stories that our African partners and our early career researchers have created. We would ask that unless you are speaking, that you remain muted. And yes, if you have any questions during the discussion session, you're welcome to pop them into the chat or to raise your hand. We'll get to as many questions as we can during the 20-minute discussion for each storytelling session. So yeah, I'd like to hand over to Sukh to give us a bit of a background to digital storytelling. Thanks, Sukh.
Thank you, Rebecca. So I wanted to start this session by giving you a bit of background of how we came around to doing these videos. And personally, for a long time, I've been interested and fascinated by scientists and how those scientists who can clearly and concisely explain their research to participants and get them engaged. And more recently, there has been an awareness that there is the possibility of an intersection between art and science, because both of those fields try to explain the ideas to the viewer and help them connect to it and pull them in. And so various initiatives have been happening to do this. One of them has been creating videos, and that's what we will be showing you later on in this presentation. But also, this was an initiative that I heard about a few years ago. This is Dancing Your PhD Contest, where the idea is that as part of your PhD, when you're completed with it, you present it to the viewers without using any jargon, without using any complex language, but using dance. Fascinating, really fascinating initiative that started in 2008. And maybe that's where we might want to ask our students to go to when they graduate, some of the students in our WaterCoE. I just wanted to share some of these fascinating videos that I found online on YouTube, where students are presenting their research in ways that is more accessible to everybody. On the right-hand side, you see somebody talking about Newton's third law and how when two objects meet each other, they push back on each other with equal force and so on. So that's sort of my journey towards coming to here. This is not where we are right now, but creating videos is what we are doing. And the idea really of how the WaterCoE could be involved in creating videos came about through this innovation, social innovation hub, which has this course on digital storytelling workshop. It's a one-week course. It's quite intense, and you really have to put aside everything else. And our WaterCoE is working on Water for African SDGs as one of our capacity building projects. And under that project, we thought it would be nice to have the ECRs, the early career researchers from each of the nodes, to use this opportunity to take this course and create a video. And that's what we are launching and showcasing today. So I'm really excited about this, and I hope you are also excited about seeing some of these videos. I'll now hand over to Dr. Jane Tanner, who's the co-director of the WaterCoE. So she can give you a little bit of a background about the COE.
Thanks so much, Sukh. Really interesting presentation and overview of our work. So just to give you a very brief background about who we are as a COE, we have 11 partner universities, and you can see them dotted around the map on your screen. And essentially, we are a group of natural scientists which realize that we need to work more closely with social scientists if we want to increase the impact of our research work in Africa. And so we got together and we looked at methodologies that or possibilities of incorporating social science more closely into our work from the beginning. So that forms the basis for our current work. And at the moment, we have 2 UKRI grants. We have the Capacity Building Grant, and we also have a Research Excellence Grant. The videos you will see today, as Sukh mentioned, are part of the Capacity Building Grant, but they also link very closely into our Research Excellence Grant, as they do highlight some of the work, some of the research work we're doing in the various partner countries. So this is a diagram that we put together when we were thinking about the SDGs, possible ways of looking and working towards achieving the SDGs as part of our work. And as the WaterCoE, we believe that SDG 6, which is clean water and sanitation, is the center, is a really key SDG and is important. And if we're going to achieve many of the other SDGs, we need to look at achieving SDG as primarily, or as a key focus point. So we envisage the SDGs in terms of our work in 2 cycles. So one is the natural resource, and that would include things like life on land, climate action, etc. And the other is our management of the resource. And there we look more at governance, institutions, good health and well-being, etc. And so really we use this diagram to focus our work and center our work, and it forms one of the bases of our capacity building themes, our capacity building UKRI grant themes. So I'll leave it at that and let Rebecca and Sukh take it forward. But thanks so much for joining us for a little glimpse into some of the work that we're doing.
Thank you, Jane. So we're going to kick off with our first storytelling session, which focuses on water quality challenges in Africa. Dr. Bazai Tesema, who is one of our Ethiopia Node early career researchers, is going to facilitate this session and the discussion that follows. The session will be roughly 50 minutes long, and then we'll pause after the discussion for a 10-minute break. So Bazai, if we can hand over to you, and Sukh will be sharing the videos. But yes, Bazai, if you could facilitate the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Rebecca and ARUA COE team, WaterCoE team. I'm so glad that I got this opportunity to facilitate this session on water quality challenge, which is really going to be, a great experience to hear stories from all over Africa. Starting from Nigeria to in the west to the eastern Africa and then to the south. So I'm so excited to hear the stories that's going to be presented by the four storytellers. So first off, actually, I would like the presenters to introduce themselves first and tell us a little about their story. And then after, Sukh and Rebecca will play their stories after. So the first storyteller is from Nigeria, Lagos City. The title of the story is Groundwater Pollution from a Dump Site in Lagos. And our storyteller is Oluwasolo or Oribayo. So the floor is yours. Introduce yourself and then tell us about your story, and then your story will be played after.
Hello, everyone. My name is Oribayo Oluwasolo, and I'm a faculty member at the Department of Chemical and Petroleum Engineering in University of Lagos, Nigeria. And it's actually a great delight for me to be part of this ARUA water workshop. And this section is actually focusing on digital storytelling. So my story essentially is groundwater pollution due to proximity to dump sites. And I hope that you actually fall in love with it when you actually view it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Oribayo Oluwasolo, and I live in Lagos, Nigeria. Water, it is essential to all life. We are made of it. It sustains life, and yet every day we take it for granted. Our most precious natural resources is under threat like never before as a result of contamination. Pollution of groundwater, due to its proximity to landfill, is rising, frightening concerns among the people affected by its negative impacts. An illustration of this is the groundwater pollution caused by Oluwasolo landfill. Oluwasolo landfill is a 100-hectare dump site located in Ojota, Lagos, Nigeria. The dump site is believed to receive over 1,000 tons of waste every day. Though it was once located on the outskirts of Lagos, today Oluwasolo landfill is in the heart of the city. Apart from the air pollution from the dump sites, the groundwater of households and communities around the dump site environment are not safe anymore. There have been complaints from residents around Oluwasolo landfill environment that their groundwater is polluted and not drinkable. Also, drilling of boreholes are not safe anymore due to the alarming level of groundwater pollution. Analysis has shown that the groundwater in the vicinity has odor, color, with iron and contaminant level above the Nigerian standards for drinking water quality. Skin rashes and other skin infections have also been reported by residents, making the usage of groundwater in the environment not an option for many. This is not comfortable and frustrating for most residents. Bringing to more people's awareness this negative effect of groundwater pollution at Ojota can propel the engagement of the various stakeholders in Lagos in curbing this challenge for people's well-being. It is my belief that an effective stakeholders engagement can promote effective participatory solution so that this generation and the future generation living at Ojota can have unpolluted groundwater.
Thank you, Oluwasolo. That's really interesting story about the challenges in Lagos City. So actually, right after we'll have to jump into the next storyteller. That's from Kampala City in Uganda, Prossie Nakawura. She will be telling us a story about pollution in the Murchison Bay, a call to action. Please introduce yourself and tell us about the story, and then your story will be played after. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zai. Good morning, colleagues. My name is Prossie Nakawura. I'm an assistant lecturer in the Department of Agriculture and Biosystems Engineering of Makerere University, Kampala, Uganda. My story is on pollution control in Kampala, and it stems from the work we are doing at Makerere as a Makerere node in the RESPEN project on urban water pollution management.
The Murchison Bay, consisting of the inner bay and outer bay, is an extension of Lake Victoria and is situated southeast of Kampala City in Uganda. It covers an area of about 60 square kilometers. The inner Murchison Bay is a semi-enclosed small water body with an area of 18.4 square kilometers and length of 5.6 kilometers off the main part of Lake Victoria. The inner Murchison Bay has a total catchment area of about 282 square kilometers with a catchment area consisting of about 20% swamps and 80% urban areas. The bay is one of the point sources receiving wastewater from Kampala City, the capital of Uganda, with a population of about 1.7 million inhabitants. Pollution loading into the inner Murchison Bay from channels or rivers has increased tremendously due to population growth, wetland encroachment, economic growth, industrialization, and paving of urban areas in Kampala City. Population pressures around Lake Victoria have led to land degradation, which have increased sediment and nutrient loading into the lake through these streams. Increasing industrialization around the lake has also increased contamination of the lake with industrial effluent. There are 4 major channels or rivers that are significant sources of water pollution that drain into the inner Murchison Bay. The first channel is the Nakivubo channel, the largest catchment drainage inlet, which drains Kitante and Lugogo channels. The second stream is the Kansanga stream, which stretches into the Gaba shoreline. The third stream is the Kinawataka stream that drains industries of Nakawa and Chambogo. The fourth stream drains the Namambe area, which is predominantly a wetland and an industrial park. The Nakivubo Channel runs from the central populated Kampala district, passing through slums, industrial settlements, and markets before discharging its water into Lake Victoria at the Makshon Bay. Although the Nakivubo sub-catchment represents only about 17% of the total Makshon Bay catchment, it contributes about 76% of the effluent. Between 2001 and 2003, the channel was widened and modified to a concrete walled structure in order to improve the city's drainage. Since the water in the channel is a mixture of secondary effluents from the National Water and Sewage Corporation sewage treatment plant at Bugolobi within Kampala City and heavily polluted untreated wastewater from other parts of the city, widening the channel increased pollution loading into the lake. Previously, the Nakivubo channel ended in a papyrus swamp that retained a large portion of the polluting compounds before the water reached the inner Makshon Bay. However, most of the swamp has since been turned into agricultural land or developed for commercial, industrial, or residential purposes. The inner Makshon Bay is also a source of water supply for Kampala City. The National Water and Sewage Corporation has a raw water intake at Gaba in the inner Makshon Bay. The National Water and Sewage Corporation has in the past relocated its raw water intake in the inner Makshon Bay because of the deteriorating quality of water. Water treatment costs have also been increasing due to the increasing pollution of the water source at Gaba. The question therefore is, as Kampala City continues to grow and as pollution loads increase, if no pollution control actions are taken, how long before the quality of water at the current Gaba intake deteriorate to a point where it can no longer be suitable to be a raw water source? What is more economical and sustainable? Is it controlling pollution sources within the catchment area or continuing with business as usual and relocate the intake again and again as treatment costs increase? Poor water quality can have negative impacts on economic development, public health, and living conditions. Can we act now before the situation becomes dire?
Thank you, Prossie, for the interesting story from Kampala City. I hope you guys are all enjoying the story so far. I would like to let the latecomers, for those who joined the session late, I would like to let you know that we're almost halfway of the first session of Water Quality Challenge. So next presenter, storyteller is from Rwanda, Kagera River. Alphonse Zarura. His talk will be on water quality monitoring.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Bezai, for giving me the opportunity. I am Alphonse Zarura, Assistant Lecturer in the University of Rwanda and a research affiliate to the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity and Natural Resources Management. My digital study is about water quality monitoring, especially using bioindicators. Specifically for this study, we use ARC as the bioindicators, especially on the Akagera River. Thank you. Hello, I am Alphonse Nzarora, Assistant Lecturer in the University of Rwanda, College of Science and Technology, and a PhD student working on fresh water quality by using ALG as biological indicators. I am also the research affiliate to the Center of Excellence in Biodiversity Conservation and Natural Resources Management. My study area is the Akagera River and its wetland. The Akagera River is formed by two Rwandan rivers, Nyabarongo and the Akanyaru rivers. It is the main tributary of Lake Victoria and headstream of the Nile River and cross the eastern part of Rwanda before forming the border between Rwanda and Tanzania. This river is highly polluted with nitrate, phosphate nutrient, which cause eutrophication in that area. And those eutrophication in turn affect also aquatic biodiversity. This pollution from Akagera River also affects the Lake Victoria that receive water from Rwanda. In order to assess water quality and improve water quality monitoring, a study will be conducted on the Akagera and its wetland by using algae that will serve as biological indicators of freshwater ecosystem functioning and health through the development of algae biodiversity index, especially trophic datum index, to monitor wetland health and the environmental change. To achieve these objectives, water sample will be collected in the Kagera River and wetland for algae and physical chemical parameters determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Alphonse, for the interesting story. Our last but not least storyteller is Naledi Cherry from South Africa, and her story will be If Nature Held Itself, a tale of a little catchment. Naledi, the floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Naledi Cherry. So I am a research assistant at the Future Waters Institute down here in Cape Town. Future Waters, as the name suggests, is an interdisciplinary research hub. We're a team of our very diverse researchers and their collaborators. They look at developing sustainable solutions across the whole water resource value chain. So I spend most of my days organizing, facilitating the logistics and supporting these research activities. In my video, I use our case study site out in beautiful Franschhoek down here in the Western Cape. There's two core themes that I wanted to sort of bring out in the video. So the first theme being that of Earth as a global commons, interconnectivity between different people, so across backgrounds, across class, across various lines. We're all sort of interconnected. We are all in this thing together. And then the second sort of theme that I'm hoping that is going to come through the video is that maybe it's a proposal that we must move more towards more novel ideas, more novel innovative solutions of solving the issues that the global environmental issues that we are facing. And we propose looking into nature and adopting nature-based systems. I hope you really enjoy the video. Thank you. It is amazing that 27 years into democracy, South Africa still reflects the legacies of her past, smeared by deep inequality. Scores of South Africans remain confined to poverty-stricken informal settlements dotted around economic hubs. There is little to no access to clean water, waste management facilities, ablution facilities, sanitation, living below the poverty line, in close proximity to very affluent communities. The stark differences are hard to unsee, but no community is an island. The effects of these living conditions are typically felt across the board. Often these manifest as environmental pollution. Sources of contamination know no bounds. They reach receptors far beyond where the eye can see. The stable river catchment is a great microcosm of this reality, an illustration that nature somehow connects the dots. The stable river catchment is nested in the Cape Winelands, a home to almost 3,000 dollar millionaires. The river, flowing from the Himalayas Mountains, first goes through Landbach. This is an informal settlement in the uppermost reaches of the catchment. There is only one formally paved road. 6 tap stands supply potable water. Here, almost 6,000 people are struggling to live in less than 2,000 informal dwellings. Located on the mountainside, rainwater is often difficult to control due to poor drainage and the lack of flooding channels. Grey water streams run freely throughout Landbach, increasing the risk to human health from this dam contact. As expected, grey water, domestic waste, pharmaceuticals, fecal sludge, and so much more ends up in the water. Further down, the river meanders through a low-income built-up area in Kronedal. This area is comprised of low-cost government housing with paved roads running in between the houses. However, cleaning agents, plastics, pharmaceuticals still make their way into the river. In its last leg, downstream, it goes through agricultural fields. Fertilizers, other chemicals run off into the river. Now, what are the implications of this polluted water to its receptor, the French Hook River? What does it mean for farmers who directly abstract this water for irrigation in commercial farms? For households that use the abstracted water for domestic purposes and for drinking?
And the farmers here, who are all export farmers mostly, and further downstream, complained in 2007 that the water quality from this wastewater treatment plant over here was causing such difficulty for their exports. And the European Union even came along as a commission to understand what the quality of the water was and warned the farmers at the time that if you don't start improving that water quality, we will take our export markets from Chile in South America, and we'll leave you guys with your 3 billion rand export and your 3,000 and more workers in the lurch.
The Water Hub is a learning site of the Future Water Institute at the University of Cape Town. It is set on a decommissioned wastewater treatment plant, now being readapted for our research purposes. At the site, we are learning how to treat contaminated water from upstream areas through nature-based systems. This is an urban living lab where we are learning how to work with nature rather than against it. The work at the Water Hub began with the challenge of treating water from the polluted river. It is extremely high in nutrients, and this got us thinking, what if we could use that water by reducing the concentration of the pollutants? The work began by converting the old drying beds that were once used for wastewater treatment, and we turned these into large biofiltration cells. We filled these large beds with different sources of natural media, large and small stones, pitch pits, and then we grew plants on top of some of these cells, much like a constructed wetland. Polluted water was then pumped from the river into each of the cells. There our journey began. The challenge is to improve water quality by managing the amount of time that water stays in each of the cells and controlling the speed of the flow. We are achieving some exciting means of monitoring the flow of water using digital sensors and loggers that send data via the internet to our servers. It is helping us understand the rhythms and patterns in water quality and flow. Before we use the water, it passes from the biofilters into a series of irrigation cells containing a common duckweed. This helps to further reduce potassium and salt concentration as a final stage. We have been surprised with the results. After 2 years, we are now seeing some exciting results. The results show that the inlet pollutant concentrations are substantially reduced, with the outlet concentrations falling within the acceptable concentration range for irrigation purposes in South Africa. For an example, ammonia is reduced between 70 and 90%. It is removed by the bacteria inside the cell. Nearly 100% of E. coli is removed from the water. Researchers at the site are now using nature-based processes to clean this water, and we are reusing this water to irrigate vegetables and to support a small aquaponic systems containing a small fish population. About 50,000 to 100 liters of water is treated each week. Doesn't seem much, but there is more than enough water to support a large garden of nearly 1 hectare of land. Our treated water is meeting the South African irrigation standards, and the vegetables are compliant with food safety standards. Each time we harvest, samples of the crops are analyzed by an independent laboratory. Included in these are samples of vegetables from other local supermarkets. The results are astounding. Our produce often has results better than what is found in the local supermarkets. Although these results are promising, we continue to advance our nature-based systems. We are pacing ourselves. For an example, we are now using select fish species at the site as biomarkers to understand the risk of pharmaceutical waste in river streams. We have shared some of the projects with the community. We are integrating the community in an organic way through opportunities of employment, training, and an open gaze policy. Our work is not done. We are continually brainstorming other forms of non-invasive means of integrating all stakeholders. The limitation of basic services upstream in the catchment is unlikely to change, at least not overnight. Our hope is that through meaningful interactions at the Water Hub, various stakeholders can gain a fuller understanding of the extent of the pollution and the associated health risks. Only then can people truly become change agents, changing how water is viewed in the upper reaches of the catchment, thereby treated differently.
Thank you, Naledi. And all the storytellers, it's really interesting. I'm so, grateful that this is really the way that we should all be going to tell, our science results so that they can be taken up easily by anyone. I think storytelling is really doing it, really in a good way. So I would like to thank all the storytellers. It was really amazing and I'm so struck by it. So now I would like to open the platform for questions from the participants. So now you can ask specifics for a specific storyteller or something general. So the floor is open to the participants to question, to ask questions, few questions. I'll take just few questions and then we'll jump on to, because I have few questions as well. So I'll just take the questions from the participants first. And you are also welcome to questions on the chat box. So Rebecca and Sukh are following that up.
If you have a question, you can raise your hand if you like, so that we know we can then ask you to ask the question.
Hello. Hello.
I think Frances has unmuted herself, possibly. I think she wants to ask a question.
Yes, hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, we can, Frances.
Yes, okay. Thanks for those. They were really great stories, really nicely done. And I think gave a real sense of the problem there, the problems that, the challenges, if you like. One thing I'm interested in is that in most of your stories, we don't see very many people, the actual water users in informal settlements and so on. And I'm wondering if that was because you're worried about the ethics or the permission of actually showing pictures of individual people or whatever.
Sorry, Frances, we heard a part of your question, but we lost it in the middle. You said something about If maybe you want to repeat it. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, my question was that the stories show the scenes very well of the water challenges, but they don't actually show much of the people involved, apart from the researchers. They don't really show the people in the informal settlements who might be the stakeholders or the people that you want to involve in participatory processes. And I'm wondering if that's just because of a concern about permission and ethics when you're making these digital stories.
Sorry, I think for an example in my sort of story, so I did reach out to various members of the community, well, maybe between 5 and 10, because we were working within a specific timeline. And then I also did reach out to some students that we have working at the sites as part of their learnerships. And there was a general unease about being on video. So regardless of how much the conversations and assurances that we would shoot the footage at an angle, we would only use audio, I sensed hesitation. So I think it was very important that we do not impose ourselves onto the community and the people that we're working with at the Water Hub, because we are still building these relationships. We've only been at the site for 2 years. There's still more projects, more collaborations that we are building with the community. So I didn't want to compromise that. So that's sort of was my approach for this particular video.
Thank you, Naledi, for that. Yes, we understand that there are limitations in bringing the stakeholders in. I'm not sure if anybody else of the presenters wants to say anything. I think we lost Bazai in the middle, so she might have, I think she dropped out, but she's back. But I'm just helping do the transition while, so she can pick up the next question. If Dr. Oribayo or Alphonse or anybody else wants to say anything, that'll be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Sukh. I can say something on the video on Kampala City in Uganda. For Makere, we are just starting our work on urban water pollution management. And this video was just to wake up people, was just to talk about the problem in a bigger way, in a broad sense. Before we actually start involving the stakeholders, we're just beginning our work and we are yet to start talking to the stakeholders. So that's why it's just a general overview of what is happening in Kampala City.
Go ahead, Alphonse, we can hear you.
Yes, here in Rwanda, just they have already established the water board, which mainly tends to work on water, and recently we have tried to work together, especially in order to sensitize them. Instead of always using the physical chemical parameters, how can we integrate biological indicators in water quality monitoring? And I think we have even the meeting together in this coming month in order to discuss all those issues related to water governance and how they can integrate even the, apart from those government institutions, how they can integrate also other participants, especially the private institution. Thank you.
Thank you, Alphonse. I also see, sorry, Dr. Oribayo, maybe you want to say something, and I see Francis has responded to Naledi's response, so I'll read that after Dr. Oribayo.
Well, with regards to that about the Lagos node, it's just to create an awareness, which is a kind of sensitization about what the problem really is to the various stakeholders. But I think I get a point, which is actually will be very good if we actually interviewing the stakeholders. It could actually create a more compelling, emotional engaging storytelling, which could actually speak of the plight of the community. And I think that could also be infused into it to make it better. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Oribayo. Yes, you have vocalized something that Francis has put in the chat, that it's a real dilemma, isn't it? We are often criticized for not giving space for the voices of poor or marginalized people, and yet we don't want to pressurize people. We want to build trust, and we don't want to put anyone in a difficult position. So yes, it's a space where we need to balance between bringing those voices in, while at the same time protecting maybe some of the voices which might be critical or criticizing some of the research or criticizing possibly the government officials. There is a second question in the chat. Bazai, I'm not sure if you want to take over. Sorry, I don't want to take over your facilitation. If you feel you're ready to take over.
Yeah, please, go ahead, because I'm not sure when it's gonna break off. So it's fine, just take it over.
Okay, thank you. There's a question from Matthew. No problem. There's a question from Matthew Weaver. A question to any or all of the presenters. How have you, or do you imagine using these videos for shifting the complex problems that you present? So how have you already done it, or how do you imagine doing it in future? I'm not sure if any of the presenters would like to say something.
Can I go, Sukh?
Please do, please do.
So this digital storytelling is unique, is because you're showing pictures. I'm sure as you're playing that some of these pictures, even before we started presenting the videos, some people would already recognize the different countries, the different cities that some of these pictures were coming from. So it is a unique way of bringing back the problem of that community back to them, but in a way, you talk to them in a way that they understand, of course, depending on the stakeholder that you're talking to. As it is now, we are all a research community. We have in those sometimes not easy to understand terms or even language to the local community. But if I was taking the video to a local community, which we'll do and haven't done from Akere, you turn it down a bit and put pictures of that particular community. We are doing our work in communities, so it would be very good to capture those pictures of that community, or even videos of that community, and even stakeholders of that community talking, such that the message really hits home, that the problem is right here in our community. You're not hearing it from somewhere else. So it's very key to personalize the story, put pictures of that community, and even deliver it in a language sometimes they understand, translate it into a language they understand, and maybe just put English subtitles. Thank you.
Thank you, Prossie. I'm not sure if any of the other presenters want to add anything. Otherwise, there are other questions, but Dr. Oribayo, I see you are unmuted.
So can I say something about that?
Is it following up on the same response?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. And
ahead,
thanks, Prossie. That was really my thoughts as well. But also, I think this could be used as part of the awareness creation as we're engaging the stakeholders, because you can come in before the session and you actually highlight use some of these videos to highlight what you're going to be talking about, given that they've been put together to clearly describe what the problem is. And then you can take on the engagement session with the stakeholders. Thank you.
Definitely, Dr. Kabenge. Yes, that was part of the idea also, that we might be using some of these videos in the stakeholder engagement. And and there's no reason why this could be this is the last video. There's definitely follow-up videos which could be made based on some of the feedback. Dr. Oribayo, did you want to add something? I see you're unmuted.
Yeah, I want to add something, just as others have actually said. For Lagos, is actually to create a form of awareness about the health implication of the drinking polluted water, or the knowledge of the water quality in that environment. And this story is actually in an electronic format, which is actually different from the more traditional storytelling using materials of paper. And then it could be accessible by community member, maybe on their phones, more like on the traditional form of storytelling, and they could watch it over and and they could also maybe interact with it if it also has some form of social media element like tweet on it. So it actually creates an engagement prior to when it could actually create a form of a forum, an engagement prior to when the stakeholders actually now meet together and then provide like a way out of the challenges. Thank you.
Thank you,
Hello?
Dr. Oribayo.
There's a question from Carl, I think.
Yes, it is just what I need to comment on it. How making the video has extended the research practice. For me, once I shared this video with the colleagues and the others that were working together, it seems that this video, it is very important that can be even used to sensitize, especially the use of bioindicators, as the Center of Excellence need to develop the framework where to collect all those different biological indicators and even other species. This can be even used in order to help other different government institutions to make awareness of the use of those biological indicators. As we have another also meeting with Rwanda Water Board, this will be shared with them in order to let them know not only those physical chemical parameters, but also to know how biological indicators can be really good to improve water quality as they are using to monitor every time. Thank you.
Thank you, Alphonse. If I may move to the next question, I see a number of questions coming through and responses. So Kirsty Carden asked, regarding this South African case study and the lack of focus on the people in the informal settlement, perhaps it is because the focus here is more on the environment and the ways in which NBS or nature-based solution approach could be adopted to address problems of contaminated surface runoff, rather than on the provision and or management of services within the settlement itself. That's actually a question rather than a statement the way I read it. I'm not sure if Naledi wants to say something to in response to Kirsty's comment.
Well, I actually also read it as a statement, or to me, I would interpret it. Actually, it's a fact. So, yeah, I completely agree with her. The focus really is protecting the environment, and yeah, there hasn't been a lot. I mean, we are what 27 years into our democracy, but there hasn't been a lot of focus in terms of policy and urban planning in actually providing services within these settlements, because they I mean, this is just one example, but then they are scattered all over Africa, over South Africa, and they're not going away anytime soon. But there does seem to be an absence at a policy level, urban planning level, of actually addressing this. The main concern is, yeah, the environment, and just, yeah.
Thank you, Naledi. I see Kirsty unmuted herself, and maybe she wanted to add something to the comment that I just read out.
Yeah, thanks, Sukh. And I'm sorry if I've made things a bit complicated by not making it clear whether it's a comment or a question. I really just wanted to back up what Naledi was saying as part of her presentation and why there wasn't the focus on interviewing people. Because exactly as Naledi has said, this is a problem that is not going to go away for us here. So we're trying to understand other ways in which we can integrate the environment, deal with issues in settlements, but also really importantly, consider how we can protect our river systems and potentially gain some benefit from it. So that was more of the focus here and less on actually expecting residents of informal settlements to be involved and to be responsible for making any changes themselves. So yeah, thank you. I hope that hasn't confused things.
Not at all. I think we are more clearer on the purpose of the video. So the purpose of the video could determine who is involved in it and who is showcased in it. I see Tally has her hand up. Tally?
Morning, everybody. It's so lovely to be with you and to listen to everything. I'm wondering if we could use this opportunity that Francis has raised to reflect a little bit on whether as natural scientists, because most of the teams are natural scientists, we tend to focus on the biophysical, the natural questions, the natural processes. And I'm going to be a little bit challenging here, whether we duck the long, difficult process of real engagement so that those voices come in right from the beginning and become integrated. And in my experience of all of these projects, it has been a new journey to think about how deeply we bring people in to our stories and into our research. And that is just a comment. Thank you. But I did wonder if Francis wanted to have a final view on it, because in the project, she's been a bit of a guru for us on this deepening of and sensitizing us to the people in the stories.
Tally, yes, it's important to be aware of our biases, and you're always a good reminder for us to think of moving into difficult spaces, that it's important to do that and not just do what we are comfortable with. I see there's a question from you, Tally, in the chat, which is a different question. Would you like to speak to that, or would you like me to read it?
No, I think someone has already responded to it. We can go on. It was this idea of expanding our practice by exposure to this exciting new way of working.
Okay, thank you. Francis, I see you're unmuted. Would you like to add something to Tally's comment?
Well, it was just in response to Tally, really, and it was to come back and say my original comment wasn't really a criticism of these stories. It was just a thought. And I see all this stuff about, you know, involving people in this as a process. And I just wonder whether, having done these stories, which do a very nice job of this biophysical and human side, that whether the next stage could even be getting people themselves, the people affected, to make a digital story from their own perspective or something like that. I've just been spent a few months over the summer with a filmmaker in Tanzania making a film about our research there. Oops, sorry, there's a phone going on. I can't turn off. It's another dilemma about, although we've had a lot of good luck of interviewing people, in some ways the agenda and the issues we wanted to talk about were set by us. And yeah, I think it's something that we just need to constantly reflect on and rethink, and then think, okay, if we've done it this way, what's the next step we could do to make more space for people's voices and people's involvement, even in the way we're presenting this issue?
Thank you, Francis. Yes, definitely. I mean, it's an excellent idea now that the people who have made these videos, the ECRs, feel a bit more comfortable, that maybe the next challenge they want to take up is what you have suggested, bringing in people's voices, maybe recording them while they're in the field, and having them explain the issue rather than, and you being more background and being a facilitator rather than presenting the issues. I'm not sure if any of the other presenters want to add anything to it, or I think Bazai also had some questions. I see acknowledgement from Tally saying such good food for thought and action. So thank you, Francis, for getting us on that path of discussing how to bring in the stakeholders and their voices. If they're, okay, I see another question from Kukuvoi. Have you thought of working with schools of public health who have experience in working with people? I'm not sure if there are schools of public health in the institutes where the 4 presenters are working, if they have any thoughts about collaborating with them, at least in the issues related with water quality.
Hi, Sukh. Oh, sorry, Prossie, I keep cutting you. You can go ahead.
No, just there is a school of public health in Makerere, but no, we not yet. We are not yet there to work with them. Yeah.
From our side, I think about a month or so ago, we actually did have a discussion about actually incorporating people that sort of like subject matter experts in this space, because we sort of recognize our shortcomings, not our shortcomings, that we don't have adequate training in this space. So sometimes there's a tendency to just want to just focus on collecting facts, and it's it's an art on its own to be able to do this sort of research in an integrated way, in an organic way. So we have looked at people in our health sciences faculty. We've had those conversations, and it's something that we view as key for the vision that we have for this little subcatchment. So just to wrap it up, sorry, sometimes I digress. Just to wrap it up, yes, it's in top of our priority list. We've discussed it. We're in conversations, and it's going to be integral moving forward at our study sites.
Thank you, Naledi. And Tally has reminded us that we do have a postdoc, Anna, who has experience on public health. And unfortunately, she could not join today, but definitely using our internal resource of Anna, who is fantastic in collaborating with us and bringing those ideas of public health and the voices of the people who are marginalized is important. So maybe that's something to think about, collaborating with her. I see a hand up by Isa and a comment from Dr. Senga. Isa, would you like to go ahead?
Yes, and exactly that's a point I wanted to emphasize, that Anna is working with social science RAs. And I was just imagining that the interaction with those RAs with people could probably be strengthened with the science RAs to make sure the element of people comes out even stronger. Thank you.
Definitely. So maybe, yes, definitely a way for us to come back to these videos and either updating them or creating new videos. And maybe the ECRs can be passing those skills of creating videos to the RAs as part of their voice at the end of their, instead of dancing your PhD, they could be videoing your master's or videoing your PhD at the end. There's a comment from Dr. Senga that the University of Dar es Salaam offers a Master of Public Health degree program. So that's good. There is potential for collaboration there. I don't see any other hands up. So maybe Bazai, I know you had some questions. Would you like to, we still have 5 more minutes. Would you like to ask your questions?
Yeah, so thank you, Sukh. My first question is, how do you think your story can be instrumental in sensitizing communities or institutions on better catchment management practices? Maybe any volunteer, 1 or 2 from the storytellers can respond to this first question.
Just as I actually said before, it could actually create awareness, okay, because some of the community members may not be aware of these health implications of drinking polluted water or also have a knowledge about what water quality is. So it actually creates awareness for them, because they could actually really get this story at their fingertip on their phone, because it's electronically. It's different from the other story, which is the traditional, as I said earlier before. So accessibility of that. And then the story could actually be done in a way which will actually maybe introduce some more interactive elements, whereby it will create a form of engagement among the community before it actually leads to a stakeholders meeting. And also it could actually, it could also be presented in a way that it could be emotionally engaging, maybe from the people who are actually affected by it, so that people could actually see their plight. And then it could, and it also will offer like a kind of a solution, a kind of light at the end of the tunnel. So I feel in that way, I think that answers your question, really.
Thank you, Dr. Oribayo. Bazai, I'm not sure if you want to respond or somebody else wants to respond. There's another comment in the chat.
I think actually we're running out of time. So if someone else like Prossie, maybe if she can respond to the question that have asked, I think Rebecca is giving us a sign that time is almost running out.
Okay, thank you, Bazai. So better catchment management practices, of course, will decrease the pollutants in the streams and channels that go into, for Uganda's case, the Action Bay. And so if we can use this video as an eye-opener, and then we sit down with stakeholders to see what can we do in our communities to manage our catchment better, such that we decrease these pollutants from getting into the channels and then leading into the lake, because at the end of the day, it's that water lake that we drink, turn on the taps and drink. So it comes back to bite us. So someone throwing, for example, a plastic bottle somewhere, anyhow, may not think it comes back to them somehow. But through this digital storytelling, we can be able to tell the community that we need to manage our environment better, and that whatever we do has a negative impact. It comes back to us somehow. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Prossie.
Hello?
Is it okay if we're right on the dot at 11:40? And if we take a 10 minutes break, we can take Eamon Bloom's comment as part of the next session when we get to the question and answer session. I think it's relevant for that session also, so it's not necessarily something just for this one. So if that's okay, we would take a 10 minutes break. We'll see you back here. Please don't leave. Please come back.
Yes.
We have 4 additional videos coming up. So definitely something more exciting to look forward to.
Okay, thank you, Sukh, for taking the facilitation role
No
up.
problem.
Where it was. So thank you all. It was really an interesting session. So we should keep on this storytelling issue. We just started, so I think there's a lot we should build on this storytelling stuff. So thank you all very much.
I hope you're all back. So we are going to start our second session on digital storytelling. And session 2 is on water allocation and access challenges in rural African landscapes. And we are going to showcase digital stories about the refugee basin in Tanzania, Lake Gaya in Senegal, the Titsa catchment in South Africa, and also the Makanda city in South Africa. So to start us off, remember, we are going to follow the same procedure that we used in the first session. We are going to first present all the videos, and I'll request the presenters to talk about themselves a little at the beginning before their stories are played. And then let's keep the questions, comments at the end of the presentations. But in the meantime, if you have a burning one, you can put it in the chat. We can get to it when we get to the discussion session. So first off is Augustina Alexander. She'll be talking to us about water allocation sustainability in the refugee basin. Christina.
Okay. Hi, thank you. As introduced, my name is Augustina Alexander. I'm a lecturer, but also a head of Department of Water Resources Engineer at the University of Dar es Salaam. But I'm also an area researcher under the resident project. So today I'm sharing a story about the water resource allocation for sustainability in a very diverse basin, in Rufiji Basin, which happens to be the largest basin in Tanzania and even in East Africa. So the reason I'm telling this story is because of the different positions that I see myself taking or standing, or the role I play in water allocations. So first, I look at it as a woman and a mother, where you find your biggest role is to provide for the family and the kids. So I can relate more to the small scale farmers who work their best to produce for their family, and even at some time endangering the water resources. And second, as just a normal citizen living in a very big city like Dar es Salaam, so we basically depend, most of our supplies comes from this big large basin, the Rufiji Basin. We talk about the big farmers who produce food for supply in this big city. But also we have the issue of power that is produced from hydropower, and we have a number of hydropower plants in the Rufiji, and the issue of water supply in this big city. So it's important this kind of basin is very important for us all. But again, as a water resources engineer, which my biggest role is making sure that the water for water resources are protected at all costs. So balancing all these factors when it comes to water allocation and the issue of bringing equality is something that is I'm very passionate about, and that's why I'm telling this story. Thank you. Rufiji Basin is the largest river basin in Tanzania and East Africa. Despite its geographical size, it is also known of economic importance in terms of hydropower production, tourism attraction, mining, agriculture, and pastoralism. It is often referred as the breadbasket of Tanzania due to its favorable climate and fertile soil. The basin is rich in biodiversity with a number of national parks and large game reserves. The sound of eagles grunting, birds singing, and the sprawling rivers make it a beautiful place to be. All this beauty of the Rufiji Basin is maintained mostly by the water flowing through its attributes. Conservation of the water sources and the entire ecosystem is key for the sustainability of the basin. Over the years, water demand in all sectors has been rapidly increasing, and this is exacerbated by the climate variation. Some of the reported challenges include the extended dry period, deterioration of river ecosystem like the reported death of eagles, environmental degradation caused by deforestation as they look for more land for cultivation. There are also issues of sedimentation due to poor agricultural practice and other development activities in the basin, causing significant siltation in the dams. Different initiatives have been undertaken to minimize the impact of human activities on water resources as well as the environment. and some have suggested measures to ensure sustainability of water supply within the basin. I am part of the ongoing research in the Rufiji Basin and the Resben project, a collaborative project aiming at unlocking resilience benefits from African water resources. The project is implemented by African Research University Alliance, ARUA Water Center of Excellence, and is node in universities across 7 African countries, including Tanzania. The research aims at enhancing participatory governance to ensure water supply system resilience and ecosystem protection, and bring about equitable sharing of the benefits of water resources among users, and more like a win-win situation. However, to achieve this, there are sacrifices along the way that one must make. But how much are the users willing to sacrifice? This is the question we ask ourselves as we think of how best to engage this very diverse stakeholder as we look for common solutions. I think of a small farmers in Rufiji wetlands and those farming near the water sources and even on the river banks as famously known as Finyongo. What are their priorities when it comes to water uses? The importance of their activities on individual and family level cannot be underrated. But what about the largest irrigated farm that feed the national and even across borders? The energy production from hydropower that is much needed for the development activities. And the entire ecosystem in the basin, are they not as important as others? So how can we fairly, equitably, and sustainably share the benefits of water resources in the Rufiji Basin? This is the question that the Resben project is embarking to find out. We hope we come out with a more practical way of sharing and conserve water sources for the present and future generation.
Thank you very much, Augustina. It's interesting to see that all across the African countries, you're experiencing similar problems in regard to water quality and now water allocation and access. And that element of competing water uses. So yes, we want water for drinking, water for irrigation, but also we want power, we want energy. So, and it's these same water resources that we use to produce that energy. So how then do we pick what is best or what is, like Augustina said, more equitable allocation of these water resources to these various water uses? Thank you. So next off is Rhokaya Diop, and she's giving us some insights into access to water and agriculture in rural communities around Lake Gaya in Senegal. Rhokaya?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Rhokaya Diop. I'm a research assistant at the doctoral school of Water Quality and Uses of the University Cheikh Anta Diop of Dakar. I chose to do this video on access to water and agriculture in rural communities in Lake Gaya to present the context of water access by rural communities and to highlight the issues and solutions related to water access at the different levels, in particular for women, and this through my father's explanations, who understands very well this subject. Thank you. Hello everyone, my name is Rhokaya Diop. I'm Senegalese and I live in Dakar. So this is a story about access to water regarding for the rural communities, and I'm going to discuss with my father, who is a professional in the field. So this is our garden, this is where I live with my family, and we all come from Dakar. So let me introduce you Mr. Salif Diop, and he will explain his background and which type of work he's doing.
Okay, my name is Salif Diop. I used to work on water issues since some decades, and water related to agriculture, to domestic uses, and particularly to rural, but also water as a whole, related to coastal and marine and mangrove areas, etc. But in this particular subject, meaning water for rural uses, we'll have to discuss some challenges, and particularly with regard to women's uses and how they will reach, their goal providing water to their agriculture, to feed their children, and mainly as well to make sure that they will sustain their communities in terms of livelihoods.
So these are my main questions to my father. So I would like to know what is done at the international, at the global level, what is done at the local level also, and how are water issues being addressed by the organizations, and at community levels, what is being done to find solutions. I know that women find solutions to solve their problems, but what is done at the institutional level to help them also? I would like to know.
Okay, at the global level, everybody knows that there are many institutions dealing with water, particularly UNESCO, UNEP on the environmental side. At the regional level, you have all those IUCN, and you have Global Water Partnership. You have many organizations who deal with water, including African Union. But more importantly, at the local level, women are organized in communities, and they are taking care of their needs in terms of how they would provide water to their children, make sure that if they want gardening, they could have enough water. Particularly sensitive when you have a climate which is changing and when you are in arid areas. And that's where they would have to tap into the groundwater with the help of the institution, the government, of course with the help of the researchers, hydrologists, hydrogeologists, and making sure that where water is, it would be tapped into and used sustainably. And the term of sustainable use is very important for them in terms of
So my next question is that I would like to know what are the gaps and what are the solutions to the existing challenges that populations are facing regarding access to water.
Well, one of the main gaps, as you have said, is the proper access to water. Because water is there, but how to access to it, be it water quality, the water quantity, from the rivers, from the groundwater. But then you have to use the nature as well. You have to see how to maintain, the biodiversity, the little forests you have, the wetlands, to make sure that the water you have will not be wasted. That is a big challenge for population to do all those work at the same time. But for women to come in the subject of women and children, of course, they have their children, they have their domestic uses, and this is also another challenge we will have to. Now, in terms of gap, our institutions have to make sure that they will drill some, how do you call it, some areas where they could have their enough water, and then provide water to them. But at the same time, there should be some payments within the communities to pay legal fees for maintaining, whatever technical solutions providing, like taps, once they will draw water and get it and not to get it for free, because water is not anymore for free, and you know that water is life. Without water, no life. That's why water is sustaining diversity, sustaining life, sustaining nature, sustaining people.
Thank you very much. Professor Salif Diop is my father, so as you see, he's he knows very well about the subject. He's an expert. So this is what I wanted to bring as a contribution to our project, just to explain what our community is facing and how they can be helped, and what are the solutions that can exist to understand to be able to solve their problems. But the main thing will be to understand their needs, and that I think Professor Salif Diop explained it very well in this story. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rhokaya, for bringing out the gender issues and the challenges of allocation and access to water. And also from the previous session, it seemed like we had left out stakeholders in our stories. So I like it that in this video, we had a key stakeholder talking to us about access to water challenges, and especially for women, and from his vast experience. Yeah, so thank you. So next is, we're going to listen to Tiswa Libala, and she's going to be telling us about participatory governance in the TIPSA project in South Africa. Notti?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Notti Swalibala. I'm a postdoctoral fellow from the ARUA Water of Excellence at Rhodes University in the Institute for Water Research. And my story is about the participatory governance in the TITA project. The TITA project is used as the learning site for the ARUA Resben project. I started working in the TITA project from 2015 when I was starting my PhD. I also worked in the TITA project as the governance coordinator from 2019 to 2020. I hope you enjoy my video. Thank you so much. Participatory governance in the TITA project. The TITA catchment is a highly degraded catchment situated in the top end of Umzimvubu River catchment in the Eastern Cape province in South Africa. Overgrazing, alien invasive species, steep slopes, and erodible soils are the key factors leading to degradation in the catchment. In support of maintaining ecological infrastructure and improve degradation in the catchment, the TITA project started as a national science-based project focusing on segmentation and rehabilitation. But after realizing the importance of people in sustaining land and water resources, the governance team emerged. In the team, I worked as a governance coordinator, focusing on empowering stakeholders to engage in participatory land and water governance. The TITA project vision is to support sustainable livelihood for local people through integrated landscape management that strives for resilient social ecological systems and which fosters equity in access to ecosystem services. The governance process started with the aim to form a TITA River Catchment Management Forum as an interface between government and residents, which includes participation of all stakeholders. Just to give a flavor of what do I mean by inclusive participation, how do people find and exercise their voices in land and water resource management? So here, we use an adaptive planning process towards developing a local catchment management strategy, paying attention to the fact that everybody is understanding and respected, and there is a learning and sharing amongst people. People together co-develop the vision of the catchment. We shifted from Catchment Management Forum to a learning words process, a workshop-based engagement which was designed to bridge the language use gap between the TITA project researchers, municipal and government officials, traditional leaders, and the rural communities affected by the project. The learning words process has three functions. The first one is embedding a vocabulary and understanding of the TITA project across the catchment, including an understanding of how the TITA project can benefit individuals and communities. Secondly, providing a foundation for the confidence, understanding, and the vocabulary to engage with the development of listening and speaking capabilities. And lastly, providing a context for community engagement with restoration implementation and livelihood development planning. Through the governance team, the TITA project employed 6 community liaison officers to be the mechanism for deepening understanding and connectivity across the catchment and the TITA project. Community liaison officers were also involved in planning, organizing, and facilitating the Learning Words workshops. And finally, after the Learning Words process, we produced a Learning Words dictionary written in isiXhosa and English for the TITA project.
Thank you so much, Notti. Again, we see similar challenges across countries in Africa. And also, Notti, thank you for introducing us, maybe some of our colleagues here that haven't come across the adaptive systemic approach, which is the key approach that we are using in the RESBEN project across our researchers in the various countries. And in your video, you were able to show us clearly some of those processes that we are following to be able to bring in that participatory contribution from key stakeholders across our communities, in the communities that we are working with. So we are going to listen to our last video for this session, and it's coming in from Rebecca Powell, and she's going to be giving us some hope for solving a water crisis in the Makanda city in South Africa. So, Rebecca.
Hi, everyone. I work in the ARUA Water Center of Excellence at Rhodes University in South Africa. and we are located in a small city called Makanda or Grahamstown. My story gives quite a short and superficial overview of some of the water challenges we've faced in the city over the last decade or so, and the work that our local water managers and scientists are doing towards trying to solve the issues and challenges. So thanks for listening.
How has the ongoing water crisis in the town of Makanda impacted on your livelihood and well-being? For me, a resident who lives on the western side of town, the ongoing water crisis has been frustrating and has made life that is already challenging even more challenging. Currently, water is turned off every day to second day, and for the more poor and vulnerable of the community, water is often cut for weeks at a time, with inadequate emergency water supplies. This has brought some people to their knees and has resulted in high levels of frustration and anger by local residents and businesses. In 2013, Makanda was declared a water crisis area, and national government had to step in to intervene in local water supply management and development. Local water management was weak and water supply infrastructure was frequently breaking due to poor maintenance and monitoring. We should have adequate water supply as we receive water from western and eastern supply catchments. Even with numerous efforts to improve water supply, we are still facing a crisis in the town of Makanda. Why is this? Since 2013, there have been numerous small water developments attempting to augment and improve water supply. Many of these have been funded by external non-profit organizations due to a supposed lack of local financial resources. However, these developments have often not been well planned, with in-depth knowledge of the local water system and how each development may complement another to ensure that collectively and effectively address the crisis. Many of the developments have not been maintained or monitored to ensure ongoing water supply improvements for the town. I believe there is hope for Makanda. Local water scientists, municipal managers, and civil society groups have been working together in more recent years to come up with shared solutions to the problem. There are already moves by the municipality to replace old and failing infrastructure with new, reliable water supply infrastructure in the western parts of the town.
Rhodes University water scientists have been developing communication and knowledge sharing platforms, as well as research proposals to understand the problem of water supply in depth, and to propose an improved water supply system for the university and Makanda West.
There are many opportunities to augment water supply for Rhodes University, which will impact on water supply to Makanda West. These just need to be investigated thoroughly and put together in a cohesive plan to improve supply. It is the hope that these efforts will come to fruition and will be paralleled in the eastern side of town where the most vulnerable communities live.
Thank you, Rebecca. It's raining cats and dogs where I am. I hope you can hear me. Rebecca brings in the element of water management issues and things to do with maintenance and sustainability of our water supply systems, which all work in hand in hand and affect access to water, and also at the end of the day, the quality. Yeah, so thank you, Rebecca, for that. So those were our four presentations. Now the floor is open to comments, to questions. Participants, you can write in the chat or you can unmute, raise your hand, unmute and ask the participants any questions.
Hello, Prossie. There was a comment earlier before in the previous session. I'm not sure if you want to take that up and start the conversation there.
Okay. From Amani Bloom, it's quite long. Is he or she still on? And then he or she can raise it up, or do I read it all out?
I see he is on the call.
Is it okay for him to raise the issue himself? Okay, let me read it out. So he says, I've also been concerned about the interconnection between researchers and stakeholders and appreciate the suggestion that the locals be given a voice and a view. However, we might be aware that in the past, the resources were more available and in larger quantities, plus the effects of modernity, all contributing to bad practice and inefficiency. How to educate for better management or amend age-old and outdated practice is a daunting task, possibly one that requires more of a social psychological approach that is beyond the skills of many research scientists. I think it was a comment and not a question.
Prossie, can I comment on that based on the TITA project?
Yes, ma'am.
So in the TITA project, we are working, or we have adopted the complex social ecological approach, where we actually acknowledges the interactions between people and the biophysical aspect of things. So what has been happening is, as you've seen in the video, that we started the project in 2014. It started as a natural science-based project, but we have realized the impact or the influence of the people in sustaining the land or the catchment as a whole. So each and every community of practice that have been working in the TITA project, they have researchers that are working from Rhodes University, plus people who are working on the ground. For example, in the governance team, we had us as the research team that is at Rhodes University, and the people that are working on the ground, which is our community liaison officers that I spoke about in the video. The other group that is working on segmentation, it's like researchers at Rhodes University. They also had like people who are working on the ground on segmentation, collecting samples, which citizen technicians, and the livelihood group that is working at Rhodes University as well as researchers. They also had other people who are working on the ground, like the ladies who are planting vetiver grass, as well as the other group, which is grazing management that is working at Rhodes. They also had eco-rangers. So we have tried to adopt that social ecological systems approach as the whole project in the TITA. Thank you.
Thank you, Notti. Any other presenter wanting to comment on that? I see a hand by Jen. Jen, can you unmute and speak?
Thanks, Prossie.
Sorry, Prossie, we're using two computers in the same room here, so apologies for that. I think Notti partly answered my question, so it really is for Notiswa, which is what she thinks the impact of the socio-ecological approach has been on the Titsa catchment. So that's a catchment where the research and the approach has been ongoing for a few years now. And I just wondered, and she's spoken to us about the approach, which was really informative. And I just wondered about the change you've seen based on this approach in the catchment, Notti.
Okay, Jane, the first change I've seen, it was from the researchers or the scientists' point of view. As I've mentioned, that when we started, like we had hardcore natural scientists who didn't want to hear anything, when it comes to including people or working with people on the ground. But as the project proceeded, we had people like as researchers that were coming in and willing to work with communities. The second impact that I've seen specifically in the people that I've been working with is from the community liaison officers. When we employed them, they were not as comfortable talking to us, but when we worked with them, engaging with them in workshops and all those engagement, they became so comfortable to extent most of them, they were also trying to organize and facilitate workshops. So they were also free or comfortable to speak in groups of people. Some of them now, they've been engaged or presenting in traditional council meetings. So that has been the impact, because at the beginning, some of them were even shy. They couldn't even want to engage with some people who are like us, like they look at us like, okay, no, we cannot engage with these people, like you are superior. But after this whole process, I've seen like a transition from people who were not able to speak comfortable to people who were so confident and speaking in these engagements. And I think one of the factors that contributed to that is us using the local language in facilitating our engagement that makes them more comfortable and wanting them to actually engage in these processes. I'm not sure if I answered your question, like Jane, sorry.
Yeah, Notti, I think you did answer it. That's very interesting. And just to take it a little bit further though, in terms of people's engagement with the environment. I mean, it's great to hear that they were much more confident to speak up. Did the work also translate to differences in the way people, more positive ways that they engage with the environment?
I wouldn't say that, Jane, because I think it was still in early stages to see how people behave around the environment. So that's the part that I didn't really pick up from my side. But as people talk about the environment, when they talk, you can feel that there is that change around when they think around the environment. But in terms of seeing like tangible results of it, like no, I didn't get into that point.
Thanks, Notti. Thank you.
Thank you, Notti. Anyone? Okay, let me go through the chat. Dr. Issa, in the last session, emphasized upstream and downstream interlinkages. I don't know if Dr. Issa, you want to talk more about that?
Yes, thanks, Prossie. It was really coming from the question of how can the videos be used in the management of catchments. I think one of the things your video clearly put out is for someone to understand that whatever happens in the upstream can very clearly go down and be linked to what is the effect on the downstream. So ideally, when you're engaging people and they understand those linkages, it down the road translates into them understanding what needs to be done in the catchment, not to affect the downstream. And it also speaks to what Jen has been asking, has it really changed how people behave? So I thought that those videos were really bringing that out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Issa. Again, in the chat, Tali is saying, Rebecca, it's interesting to note after Naledi's comment of South Africa inequality, Makanda West is mainly white privileged side of town. I don't know if anyone wants to comment on that. And then Rebecca, you replied, you want to say it out loud, or do I read it? Rebecca, do I read your comment? Okay, so she says, yes, Talis is definitely inequity in access to water between the western white side of Makanda and the eastern side of town, which hosts the poorer and less privileged communities. The western side of town has better access in general. Again, those issues of access are coming in quite clearly from Rebecca's story. Same town, different communities, but you see those very different challenges to water. Francis, again in the chat, you're saying that following from Tali's point, it would be interesting if researchers could reflect the challenges of doing this inclusive participatory approach in conditions of structural inequality as illustrated in South Africa. And can all stakeholders participate, speak in the same way? Do the poor people really feel that participating will make any difference, or are they just resigned to the societal inequities? Any of the presenters? Again, it's a lot on Notti, and you applying the ASA approach in solving some of these issues. I don't know, Notti, can you touch on some of these issues?
If I can answer that, Francis, it's unfortunately from my side, I didn't get a chance to engage with researchers that are included or that are working in the TITA project. But as I've mentioned, I've seen a shift in the way they were doing things at the beginning of the project, and at the stage where I have left the project, that they were so open to work with communities. I'm not sure whether they were open to work with communities because they were obliged, because some of you find that the research proposal, they want people to engage with communities or researchers. So I'm not sure whether it's coming from a change in behavior kind of thing, or they were enforced by something in order for them to change and to be able to engage with communities. But from the community point of view, I had a feeling that them engaging with us will actually have an impact or a difference in the way they do things. For example, the governance team has started what you call a capability pathway, where we were actually looking at people's skills to improve them, like from knowing where we get together and understand, to getting listening and speaking, to influencing, planning, and decision making. So from that, you can tell that poor people, they felt like there can be a difference. As I've mentioned that already, people were able to participate now in those decision-making engagements or meetings. Like those poor people were able to voice their opinion in those meetings without having any fear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Notti. Rebecca, your hand is up.
Thanks, Prossie. Also, just a comment on what Tali and Francis have said, that I think, yeah, definitely the poorer, less privileged communities in South Africa, particularly in Makanda, aren't always given the space to voice their issues. I think those spaces aren't always created, and so they don't always feel like they can voice their challenges. I know our Water Centre of Excellence, Tali and Matt Weaver, have done some work recently to create these spaces. I don't know if they want to comment on that, but I think in Makanda we are moving towards giving the less privileged communities a space to speak out about the challenges they are facing with access to water.
Thank you, Rebecca. Back in the chat, Tali is wondering what it was, Rhokaya, this is specifically to you. She's wondering what it was like doing a video story as a conversation, in brackets interview, because it was a different approach from all the other videos. Rhokaya?
Yes, I thought to use my dad to portray the story of Les Guerres because water-related issues have become very important in today's society, and populations are increasingly faced with problems related to water scarcity, particularly in terms of access to water and resource preservation. So I thought to interview my father because he has a lot of knowledge through his work as a professor and a researcher in the management of lake basins, in particular, and the rationalization of the resource regarding access to water for rural users, as well as for women for their livelihoods. And I chose to do this video because he has acquired knowledge regarding the preservation of the resource with climate change and the maintenance of biodiversity in the context of water management. So it was very interesting to get these insights from my father's points of view, and it was a different experience that has enabled me to broaden my interests and my points of view regarding access to water and its management, in particular for rural communities.
Thank you, Rhokaya. Dr. Issa, we have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Prossie. Thank you very much. And this is a question, although I direct to Tali, but I think it's to all of us. How much of the ASA approach to water management has been applied in Makanda now, or is planned to be applied down the road?
Thank you, Issa. Just to say, yes, we have applied it and we can certainly share some of the results with people. Oh, excuse me, I'm losing my voice at the moment. If you don't mind, I'm going to rather pick up and ask the Tanzanian group, Augustina. Rhokaya mentioned this whole thing of her father giving this insight into the complexities of water sharing in the Senegal River, and you presented it from a slightly different point of view from Tanzania. I'm wondering what you feel about the difficulties of water sharing and some of the challenges, for example, of more powerful water users in relation to other water users, because that affects all of these stories. Issa, forgive me for not going into detail, but I will share some of that information.
Thank you.
Tari, I'm not sure whether I got your question, but I thought you wanted me to talk a little bit about how I feel about the power relation in water allocation.
Yeah, I was wondering, you presented such a complex story of how difficult it is. You had that lovely picture of people around the table and what they were prepared to sacrifice. What's your experience of that kind of space where water sharing is so hard?
I've been to some few multi-stakeholder sessions that the basins normally hold, just to bring the stakeholders close and discuss issues. But when you think about the small scale, most of them, they don't have permits, and therefore their voice is not heard enough because they don't have permits to use water. So every time they access water, it's like they legal obstruction. So they are not included in the plan. When you plan for water, how much you have, how much you're going to spend. But now in the Rufiji Basin, it's even complex because of where people are located. You find the small scale farmers are on the upstream, and then you have these other water users, like the hydropower, you have the national park on the downstream side. So if you don't manage how water is used on the upstream, you affect these other bigger projects downstream. And most of the users of national interest, they're more on the downstream. So it's more effort is put to make sure that this project surviving, meaning they have enough water. And we kind of like forget about what about the population upstream, where most of them, they farm for their survival, for the food, and small business activity that they can do just to get enough for their survival. So it's still not, I think there's a lot to be done, especially on the poorest, so that everyone feels like they have the voice to speak and they can be heard. And everyone understand that even their priorities are also important as much as the national priorities are important.
Thank you.
Thank you, Augustina. Thank you, Tali. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, presenters, and thank you all the participants for your contributions. So I noticed some 2 comments. Maybe they'll be taken up in the next session, but this marks our 2nd session on digital storytelling. Over to you, Sukh.
Thank you, Prossie. Rebecca will take over now. I think there is a few minutes for Tali to give her reflections about the sessions, about the videos, about the ECR's work and so on, and any things to consider for going forward.
Thank you very much indeed. I just want to say that as the director of the WaterCoE and having worked in developing the ideas for the whole project, I'm just so proud of all of you. Thank you. I think that was a fantastic voice of the center in how we are trying to push some of the frontiers. So I just wanted to reflect on the fact that this particular session was particularly real. This wasn't trying to present a polished research presentation. This was the real efforts of our ECRs to move into a new space, to move into the space of creating videos that communicate their work, that do bring new voices into the mix. And they've been really brave in sharing this first video they've ever made. And I think they were amazing. I do think that what happened today was bringing everybody into some of the frontiers of how to engage. We saw so clearly that across Africa, the images that we saw, this challenge of inequity, the realities of the lived lives of different people. So in thinking about greater fairness, both to people who are vulnerable and to the environment, I think these videos were a fantastic start in creating conversations. And not all conversations are comfortable. Some conversations need to be a little bit prickly and hard in order to challenge us to change. And I think there was a lot of that in this today. So thank you so much. Thanks particularly to Rebecca and to Sukh for the efforts of making the session happen and for running and organizing and supporting the ECRs in their engagement in this effort. So thanks for inviting me to close, and thanks for a wonderful session. Cheers.
Thank you, Tali, and thank you for leading the Water Center of Excellence and pushing us across the boundaries where we are not always moving into. Before we close, could I ask everybody to turn on their videos? We'd love to take a photograph of everybody who has been here, who's shared this journey with us. And yes, thank you.
Oh, so cool always to see the team and all of our visitors. Thanks so much, everyone.
So I'll take a couple of photographs because there are more people than on the first slide. So just bear with me. Don't go away. Don't shut off your video. Isa, I don't know, I guess you're not in a space to turn on your video. So
It's got its video turned on.
Oh, I see it black.
It's obviously 2 connections.
Okay, okay, and Rebecca's also taking shots. I see you, Isa, now. Okay, I've taken one photograph. Please hold on. Let me take another photograph of the second slide of people who are there. It's wonderful to see 34 people here.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for joining us today. I hope in future we will be creating more videos, bringing in some of the comments that have come here and seeing you again. And maybe it has inspired some of the other ECRs or other researchers to create videos and to see how they can be used as a way to interact with the stakeholders, to bring their voices, which is so important, which has been highlighted throughout this session, to bring those voices in and to make them real, and to record some of those conversations that are uncomfortable, as Tali said. They might be uncomfortable, but they are important for us to move forward. So I thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sukh. Thank you, Rebecca, Tali. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhokaya.
Keep well.
Keep well. See you soon.
Well
Thank
done.
you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Well done, everyone. Thank you. Well done, Bex and Sukh. Smashed it.
Thanks, Nat.
Yeah, well done, everyone. Well, I so loved being part of that. I just loved it. Thank you. It was such a gift into the whole center.
Yeah. And like you said, all these ECRs have moved into the brave space of working with...
It's brave to share that. It's really brave to share that work. It's fantastic. Yeah.